it does have a lot to do with belief. When I started my business, I would have never started it had I not believed that I could accomplish it. And I'd watched other people start businesses. I was working for other people that had a similar business. And, one of the common themes is, why not me? Like, if these guys can do it, why can't I do it? I may not know how to do it right now, but I think I just have this natural ability to commit to something and figure it out along the way. I was on a phone call with my wife yesterday, and she brags me up sometimes and says that, what Jefferson has a knack of doing is building his plane on the way down.
Yeah.
And I just have, I think one thing that entrepreneurs have in common is they just have this natural ability to believe that things are possible and figure it out as you go. Some of the smartest people I know that would just have an incredible opportunity if they could put this one component together. They just overanalyze and they overthink, and then they just never get around to doing anything. And I'm kind of opposite, where, I think I have some natural intellect and things like that, but I'm compared to other people that I know, I don't think I'm that smart. I just get to work and I figure it out as I go. So when I was coming from working with this other business, I saw that they had a great business model and they were great people, but they just weren't all that interested in growing or applying any of the things to the business that I thought would be a good idea. And it was like almost threatening to them at those last stages of me working for them, because I wanted to do big things. I had big goals. I want to make, back then I want to make 300 grand a year. And they're like, I don't know, that doesn't seem possible here, but good luck.
Yeah.
And I knew that I could. I knew the activity at that level for sales and volume that I needed to do that. And I just started making everybody look bad. So it was a threat, and I started feeling that pressure. So it led me to go start my own business. My name's Jefferson Rogers, and I am the proud owner of JKR Windows, also a father and husband. And, just barely getting started over the last couple of years doing smart things with my life. Still got a long ways to go. Man, dinner table was exciting at my house.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm the oldest of 4 boys. So we were usually in a big hurry to get food down so we could continue on with whatever we were doing. We did lots of outdoor activities, rollerblading, BMX. We had zip lines in our backyard, trampolines. Cool. We used to jump out of the 2nd-story window onto the trampoline. And it was, Mom tried to get us to sit down for dinner. It didn't work all that well most of the time.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's great. That's great. Sounds like a typical boy family, right? Everybody's running around. Were you guys in sports or anything like that? Did you go down that path? Yeah.
Yeah, we did. I did a little bit of soccer. Wasn't that big of a fan. We did flag football and Little League baseball. And then later on, when I was a teenager, got into riding motorcycles, and then quit doing all the traditional sports to traded it up for riding dirt bikes.
So that cool. Very cool. Excellent. Now, were you, and I know that you've just gotten into more of the entrepreneurial side of things recently, but did you have any entrepreneurial influences that you would say growing up at all?
I think probably the closest thing that I had to an entrepreneurial influence was a great uncle of mine. It's my grandpa's brother. And he had a show that he helped produce in Las Vegas. And he was a flashy guy, wore chains and had this big flowy, amazing hair, a great house in Vegas, and had all these toys. So I always wanted to be that uncle growing up. I didn't know how I was going to do it or how he did it, but I had a lot of other influences in my life that were average, ordinary, just blue collar, kind of negative people in my life. And I knew pretty early on that I didn't want to be one of those people, and was going to try and do something. It took me a long time to get it figured out, to start doing some things that were productive enough for that to be a reality. But yeah, I think my uncle was probably the closest thing. And besides that, I grew up around just a bunch of really blue collar construction, hardworking, great people. Just, they didn't have a whole lot of exposure to it. I don't think.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's interesting. So did you you went down the path. Did you go to college and all of that? Because I know obviously you took some detours, I guess you can say, with your life.
Yes.
But did you do the typical college thing, or did you start something else, out of high school, or what was your path there?
You know what? Mostly all I did out of high school was just drink beer and smoke weed.
Mm-hmm.
I had a job at a movie theater, making hardly anything. And then I got into construction. My childhood, from like 10 years old up until graduating high school, I helped my dad he was a general contractor, and I helped him frame houses and do concrete. And I don't think I started getting paid for that until after high school. I did a lot of work with my dad just to earn the right to sleep under his roof. But you know what? I ended up going to school. It was just an experience for me. I never had any plans to do anything with it. I just did some generals and racked up a bunch of student loan debt. But I only did 2 semesters, and I did really well, but I just attribute that to school being too easy.
Okay.
Barely showed up. I barely had to do anything to get a 3.0.
Yeah. Yeah. What, so talk a little bit about your life at that time, and some of the influences maybe that you had around you, or what your mindset was, your thought process was, what was important to you. Like, just kind of dive into that part of your life where, again, kind of started getting a little squirrely there.
You know what? I think, I didn't have a whole lot of direction, and it was just me trying to make sense of what do I do with my time. And I kind of took the path of what most, teenagers and early 20-year-olds would do. And that is to find what makes me happy and makes me comfortable and have fun in the process. So I hung out with a lot of people that were doing the same thing, not a whole lot of direction. And we partied and drank and smoked weed and did some, fun activities and things. But my mindset wasn't really ever aware of being goal oriented, or, I think it was aware of it, but I never put a whole lot of emphasis on it. So, for most of my 20s, I was just focused on having fun and partying. Actually, one time I remember my brother asking me, because I'm the oldest of 4 boys, and always told my whole life that I'm an example to those boys, and be careful what you do, because they're watching very closely. And I remember one day we were sitting there smoking some weed in the shed, and my brother asked me what I was going to do with my life, because it was not looking all that bright. And I told him, I kind of got defensive, and I told him, I don't know, I'm just going to party for the next 5 years and figure the rest out later. And, luckily I didn't party for 5 years, and started to put some things together after that. But I'll never forget that, because, it turns out I was having an impact on those boys, and they were watching me very closely, and they followed pretty closely to the things that I was doing. And now, been able to make an impact in other ways in their lives after the past 4.5 years of doing things a little bit differently.
Yeah. Yeah. That's amazing. Would you say that was one of the turning points, would you say, where you started to realize that, maybe I should look into doing other things, or were you not quite there? Not quite at that point yet.
I wasn't quite there yet, but I go back and think about some of these times in my life as like seeds planted and memorable moments, because I was, there are these emotional interactions that happen, and I get defensive and I want to justify the behaviors. But then I go back and think about those later, and it was like, you know what? Things started to change a little bit after that, because I don't ever want my brother to ask me what I've got going on and not have something to say. So after that, it still took me a while. I don't think I had a driver's license during that time, and for another like 5 years after that, because I got caught so many times smoking weed, drinking, and then I never stopped driving. So every time I got caught driving, they just tacked on a little bit more time.
Yeah.
But at least I had the seed planted, and I slowly started making progress and doing things that were a little bit smarter, getting a little bit better job, being a little bit more responsible. And then I ended up, having to move away from my hometown so I could get away from some of the influences and the behaviors and the patterns and the partying that was just keeping me stuck.
Mhm. And would you say your temperament during that time period, would you say that you were, you mentioned already that you got very defensive. Were you kind of like, I don't want to say hot-headed, but like things would set you off like really quickly? Was that kind of your personality? Like you go
Call it
from
the
being
Rogers
fine to,
rage.
yeah,
Runs in the family.
yeah,
I've had to work on it significantly to be able to get it under control. And I still feel it bubbling up every now and then.
yeah,
But yeah, I mean, my dad growing up, my dad's a firefighter for 27 years. He's been retired for a couple of years now, but he put me through a couple of walls as a teenager.
mhm,
And then I picked up right in his footsteps and put my brothers through a couple of walls and got in bar fights, and I would just lose it really quickly because of just like immaturity and emotional instability, and just reactions is all I
mhm,
ever knew. Didn't know how to control it. Didn't know I needed to control it until I started to realize that, I don't want people to perceive me like this. I don't want to be known as this hothead and be known for this Rogers rage. So now over the past, I've been working on it for 10 years or so, but really have started to see some significant changes and improvements in my marriage and my kids and the way that I respond in business over the past 5 years.
yeah, love it, love it. Talk a little bit about those steps when you started to, really start putting things together. What were some of those initial things that I don't know, maybe inspired you, or things that you realized about yourself, or, just some of those first steps where you started moving in the right direction?
You know what? I think it was one thing that I think I've been really blessed with is this level of confidence and belief in myself, that wherever I was at in my journey, it was right where I wanted to be. And as soon as I started to make some decisions and change my mindset about what was acceptable in my life, things started happening. And it was usually really quickly.
Mhm.
So throughout the process, as I've written a book now, and I've done tons of podcasts, and I've done coaching and mentoring, consulting, advising, and I get to see people in all kinds of different scenarios that are some version of what I've been through in my life. And you start to see patterns. And one of the biggest things that you see is the thinking, the patterns that you have in your beliefs and your thoughts and your self-sabotage that everybody has. It's in some shape or form. And I've just been able to, over the years, get better and better at my thought patterns and my belief and the things that I allow into my space that affect my energy and my environment. So, some of it came naturally, but, I also had a mother that was extremely cognizant of the power of that. And she, my whole life as the oldest brother, would tell me how incredible I was and how blessed I was, and the impact that I could make as a leader and as a brother, and the natural leader that I was born to be. And so, it worked because I took it in later into life and just have had an incredible amount of confidence in everything that I do, to know that I can figure things out and I have what it takes. And if I put my mind to something, I know that I can accomplish it. And the only reason that I wouldn't is if I quit, and I ain't a quitter.
Mhm, mhm. Yeah, and I love that. And t- what would you say, like confidence in yourself? Obviously, sounds like that was a huge component to your transformation. Um, do you have, or have you coached anyone on, creating more confidence for themselves? Are there any techniques or anything that you've realized about yourself, or how you respond, to different situations, to be able to increase that self-confidence at all?
Yeah. Yeah. There's some things that, you can't reproduce, or you can't duplicate from my upbringing. So, I believe that I had kind of a leg up because of the way that I was brought up and the confidence that was instilled in me as a young man. But then, there is people that didn't have that, and there's a lot of them. And so the ways that you can start to build that up is, it has to start somewhere. And what gets people down is like, God, I have so much to do and so much to overcome. and they got all these things weighing them down. And there's kind of like this victim mentality of the upbringing and the abuse, but it has to start somewhere. And you just start little by little recognizing what you allow into your environment, and the negativity and the self-talk are the first places that I tell people to start. You've got all these things that have just become normal and acceptable to you that you don't even realize the impact that they're having on your life. The music, the social media, the negative people that have very similar destructive behaviors as you have right now, that are just continuing to put you right back in the same spot and keep you from being able to make progress.
Yeah. Yeah. The news, another one. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. And those are some of the big ones. You got to start somewhere. And you know, most people get too worked up about how far they need to go instead of just focusing on the little things that they can control today. And the reality is the only thing that we can truly control is our thoughts. And once you can start getting that reeled in and realizing the power of your thoughts and being aware of the things that you're thinking, most of us just go through life not even aware of the patterns that we're in, the thought patterns, the self-destructive behaviors, just because it's so normal and everybody else does it too. But once you can start to plug into that and become aware, you can start to make those changes. And then it is amazing what can start to happen just by changing your frequency and your thoughts and the things that you believe are possible for you.
I love it. I love it. Yeah. Couldn't agree more. And talk a little bit about some of those things that you've accomplished now. And you know, you've done some amazing things, and very, very quickly too. You know, talk about some of those things, and then we'll kind of dive into some of the tactile things maybe that you've done, you know, that have really had a big impact in your business.
So now say that again, just some of the accomplishments.
Yeah. So like you have your window company, which, you know, has blown up, you know, in a very, very short period of time, right? I mean, there's a lot of people that are afraid to start their company. So, you know, you went from, you know, maybe not necessarily having a company to jumping in and having, you know, a very, very successful company very, very quickly. So I guess just explore that area of your life. You know, how did you choose that you wanted a window company? How did you choose, you know, how to market yourself, how to grow that business? And I'm assuming that you didn't necessarily have a background in running a business or anything like that. And again, you've had, you know, a great deal of success. So, you know, you've done a lot in a very, very quick amount of time. And there's people that have been doing this for years and years and years. And, you know, they have maybe only made a couple 100,000, and you know, you're much further along than that. So just talk about that whole transition.
So it does have a lot to do with belief. When I started my business, I would have never started it had I not believed that I could accomplish it. And I'd watched other people start businesses. I was working for other people that had a similar business. And, you know, one of the common themes is, why not me? Like, if these guys can do it, why can't I do it? I may not know how to do it right now, but I think I just have this natural ability to commit to something and figure it out along the way. I was on a phone call with my wife yesterday, and she brags me up sometimes and says that, you know, what Jefferson has a knack of doing is building his plane on the way down.
Yeah.
And I just have, you know, I think one thing that entrepreneurs have in common is they just have this natural ability to believe that things are possible and figure it out as you go. Some of the smartest people I know that would just have an incredible opportunity if they could put this one component together. They just overanalyze and they overthink, and then they just never get around to doing anything. And I'm kind of opposite, where, you know, I think I have some natural intellect and things like that, but I'm compared to other people that I know, I don't think I'm that smart. I just get to work and I figure it out as I go. So when I was coming from working with this other business, I saw that they had a great business model and they were great people, but they just weren't all that interested in growing or applying any of the things to the business that I thought would be a good idea. And it was like almost threatening to them at those last stages of me working for them, because I wanted to do big things. I had big goals. I want to make, you know, back then I want to make 300 grand a year. And they're like, I don't know, that doesn't seem possible here, but, you know, good luck.
Yeah.
And I knew that I could. I knew the activity at that level for sales and volume that I needed to do that. And I just started making everybody look bad. So it was a threat, and I started feeling that pressure. So it led me to go start my own business.
Mm-hmm.
And then, I was still scared, and there was a lot of uncertainty. I'd never done it before at that level. I'd ran a pressure washing business, but it was nothing like this. It was just me show up and spray some stuff down and, go on to the next one. So yeah, very little experience. I just figured it out as I went. And then one thing that really helped me take off in my real estate and in my business and in my personal development is, man, I started surrounding myself with people who had done it before.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to have to learn all this stuff the hard way and have it take forever, because I know that there's people that have done it, and I just have to surround myself with those people and ask the right questions so I can speed up the process. So for the first year, I had kind of relied on this mentor program that I was involved in, some high achievers and some people that were doing some big things. And it helped me get the business started, and with the belief that I needed to just get my feet under me as a business. Then the next phases were, just getting through all the growing pains and starting to hire people and learning to be a leader and train. And then once I got my feet under me there, what was the next level like? And I ended up getting involved in a consulting program and learned a whole bunch of new things that I could apply to my business, with systems, processes, meetings, the rhythms that you do things in, SOPs. And then our business just took off. I mean, it grew 500% in 1 year.
Yeah.
But that never would have been possible had I been relying off of my own experience and my own timeline. I got the cheat code from somebody else who had already done it before. And this is one of the things that now I do for other businesses, because, I want to bring a different perspective. The guys that I saw it for whatever reason without really being prompted, or a sales pitch, or, whatever the case is. But what I find now in the construction industry and home services is there's so many companies that have been doing it for so long, the way that they've been doing it, and they just cannot see themselves changing it. And you'll even hear them say stuff like, this is the way we've always done it.
Mm-hmm.
Why would you do something different? Don't fix something if it ain't broke. There's all these sayings that keep people stuck. And the coaches, mentors, consulting is one of the biggest contributors to people's really quick change of trajectory and success. That is just an unused resource. And there's more people that need to know about the power of it.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. And again, it kind of gets back to what you were saying earlier, surround yourself with that positivity, with those, just surround yourself with knowledgeable people that have done things, that you're looking to do. So I couldn't agree more. I'm huge on, mentorships and, joining all those types of groups and learning from different people. So you haven't mentioned yet how successful your window company is. I think that's, a great achievement. So just really quickly, just mention, where you're at as far as a company is today, and, how quickly you were able to scale to that level.
Yeah. So I started in March of 2018, 2 months after I got sober. Now I've been sober for 4.5 years.
Congratulations.
But, we started in March of 2018. We did $1 million in sales in that first year. I did 2.2 million the second year. And then in 2020, when everybody was telling me to shut the doors and quarantine and go home and think about doing something different, we decided to do the complete opposite. And we doubled down, kept hiring, kept expanding and improving our training. And we grew by 500% in 2020. And we did 10.4 million in sales.
Wow.
Last year we did 14.4 million. And this year we're on track for, between 18 and 20 million.
Love it. Love it.
In our fifth year. So, it has happened quickly. One thing that I'm trying to get better at is celebrating a little bit. It still seems like I haven't done a whole lot when I compare it to what I know that I'm capable of. So it's almost like it's a blessing and a curse, because it's gotten me far quick, but then it's also like I have a hard time enjoying the process, because we're trying to build this into 200 million.
I completely, I identify with that so much. I mean, people are like, wow, you've done so much, how did you do all of that? And I'm like, I don't feel like I've done anything yet. Right. And it's, there's been amazing things that we've accomplished. And, it is difficult to be able to take that time to set it aside and realize that, yeah, this is pretty incredible. Not many people, can build, a business, doing $20 million a year and, continue to grow and have goals to grow it to 200 million. So,
Yeah.
so that's fantastic. What would you say is, besides the coaching and the mentoring, maybe more like tactile, steps that you took in your business? What were some of those big, big advancements that, after you did whatever that was, you saw, some pretty big growth?
Yeah.
What were some of those things?
Well, I think it's pretty common in business early on, especially in the home services industries, is, everybody feels like they're the best at it and that nobody could do it as good as them. So they find themselves years into the process still having to do most of all of the tasks.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing that I learned early on was there were some things that weren't going to help grow the business that I was doing that was taking too much of my time. So one of the biggest contributors to us being able to grow so fast is me being able to attract and hire a good team for operations, for admin, for payroll, and for sales. There's only so much that I could do by myself in sales. And for the first 18 months, I closed every single deal, trained every single person.
Yeah.
And it kind of capped us out right around that $2 million mark. And I could have continued at that pace, and I'm dang good at what I do. But for us to grow to, at that time, our goal was only to go to 4 million. I knew that I had to get good at training and developing people, and patience was one of the things that I struggled with when it came to training and letting people grow at their own pace. So there's been a lot of lessons that I've learned throughout the growth process when it came to developing people and hiring the right people. Because what I found myself doing was we would grow to a certain point, and now I'm in a hurry to hire somebody. Mm-hmm. And then I find myself hiring somebody that I probably wouldn't hire if I wasn't in a hurry. And then, it doesn't end well.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the hiring, growing a team is the only way that you can truly be able to grow, because you're buying your time back by training somebody. It's a lot of time and effort involved up front to get that person trained. But now you've bought a bunch of your time back that you can go focus on things that are going to help grow the business. Yeah.
Yeah. No, couldn't agree more. When you're hiring these teams, what types of, I guess, interview processes, identification processes, I guess that's the best way to be able to describe it. How are you identifying the people that, yes, this person, seems to have the right personality? Like, is there a process or steps that you kind of go through to, evaluate them, kind of just from a very, very, micro type level, or
Yeah.
what does that look like for you?
Yeah. One of the things that can help the most is being prepared. Early on, I wasn't all that prepared. I was scatterbrained. I didn't use a calendar. I didn't even know I had an interview coming up, and I just happened to have somebody walk in, and I wasn't prepared with questions. And I based a lot of my decisions early on somebody's personality and their alignment with my vision, and not necessarily on experience or expertise or, time in that position that was going to add value to the situation. So I ended up with, early on, a couple of people that were very loyal to me and had great attitudes, but weren't all that experienced in what I'd hired them for. So there were some challenges early on there. And now over time, I've developed more of a process, and I've got a set of questions that I ask, and I take my time. And these positions are really important. We're going to lose time and money if we're trying to do this in a hurry. So you've got a time frame that we've allotted to make sure that we're interviewing a certain amount of people, and that this is going to be a good fit for not only the attitude, because I don't ever want to hire somebody in my business that has a shitty attitude, because you can teach the skills, but you can't teach somebody to have a good attitude and have positive energy.
Yeah.
That's one of the first things that I'm watching for when somebody comes through the doors, their energy, their attitude, their can-do attitude. And then, I start asking questions about their experience, their background, how they can contribute. And then one of the things that, people aren't all that crazy about, but sometimes I'll ask a really industry specific type of question that, the likelihood of that person knowing is pretty small. And then I'm always curious how people will answer a question like that I know that there's very few people that could answer this intelligently. And there's something to be said about somebody that can come in and very humbly admit that they don't know the answer to that. And man, but I sure am curious about something like that. And one thing that I can promise you, if you do decide to go with me, is that I'm coachable and I want to learn and I want to grow within the organization, and I'm in for the long haul. One thing about business is if you got a lot of turnover with your people, it's going to keep your growth stunted because you spend so much time reteaching somebody to do the same task.
Yeah.
That it keeps you from making progress in other areas.
Yeah. And that's even a good, warning sign, I guess you can say, if you do have a lot of turnover, right, you're probably not doing something right, with those people, either that, or it's, just a really shitty job too. So, but yeah, it's something else to watch out for there. Talk a little bit about how you determine when you feel like it is the right time to hire, right? Like, we just went through the exercise of how we hire. And I think a lot of people have things that they want to let go of. They want to, hire somebody else, but they're afraid to because, maybe they don't know if they can afford it yet or not. Talk a little bit about how you get out of that mindset of, I don't want to do this anymore, but I don't have enough money to be able to hire anybody. So I'm stuck doing it, which then is, wasting my time. Like talk to that kind of back and forth element that I think pretty well all entrepreneurs go through as they're scaling. And this could even be at any scale, right? Like, you're doing 30 million and you probably still get those types of situations where you still feel that, but what are your thoughts along those lines?
You know what? I think there was a mentor of mine that told me one time that when you're hiring in a hurry or when you're under pressure and you already need that person in place, it's like dating when you're drunk. Because you're going to make exceptions that you normally wouldn't make.
Yeah.
So some of the activities that we do to try and alleviate that is at our staff meetings, we're always thinking about these potential types of positions that we could need and reverse engineering from the targets that we're trying to hit. And what extra support positions are we going to need to be able to hit those numbers? And how much can our current team handle? And at what point are we going to need some extra supplemental help?
Mm-hmm.
So then we can get ahead of it. And we've overdone it a little bit in some cases where we were overstaffed, and then we had to back down a little bit as we became more effective and realized that some of these positions were a little bit redundant. And as the other more experienced person got a little bit more effective with their time and their tasks, we could put some more responsibilities on them to give them an opportunity within the company to raise their income. And then we free up a slot that, was a little bit overdone. And, as we grow, we start to realize that there is these specific positions that we need in each office that are going to be almost identical to each other. So now we can develop our SOPs and our training sequence. So when we bring somebody in, for one, when we start an office, we know exactly what we're going to need. We're going to need an office manager. We're going to need a project manager. We're going to need a front desk person that can help answer the phone calls and do some scheduling. And then I need a sales manager. Mm-hmm. And at one point we had, probably twice as many people as we needed because we were focused on some different things that we just hadn't become aware of yet. So hiring is tricky. And a lot of it, as many mentors and consultants and coaches and events as you go to, there's only so much that you can learn from those things. Some of these things you got to learn for yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. You just got to get out there and do it. Yeah. No, couldn't agree more. This is, I love talking to people that, have started something from nothing and, have gone through that process, and you've done it very, very quickly. So congratulations there. If people want to learn more about you, your products, your services, we've never even mentioned the window company name, if that's something you want to mention.
Yeah.
How would they reach out and get in touch?
Absolutely. JKR Windows is the name of the company. That's actually my initials. And we're growing fast, and we're always looking for good people. So right now we're hiring office manager and a project manager in Boise, Idaho. We're opening offices in Colorado and Arizona this year as well.
Oh, cool.
For similar positions. And we're always looking for salespeople. That's one of the areas that, for us to be able to grow really quickly, developing salespeople has been something that we've put a big emphasis on. Mm-hmm. So jkrwindows.com, you can find us there if you're interested in looking into a position here. And then also I put out content on social media every day, 2 or 3 posts a day on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, Twitter, and LinkedIn. And most of my handles are all at Jefferson K Rogers.
Love it. Love it.
And I've even got my cell phone on Instagram. So I have people reach out to me all the time, just asking business questions, personal questions, marriage, addiction. Love to help if I can.
Yeah, no, I love it. I love it. Real quick too, you mentioned, developing salespeople. What would you say has been your biggest help in learning how to train and develop salespeople? I don't know if it was a program or a book or, some advice that you were given, because again, salespeople are, that's one of those key positions that, you need them, and, good salespeople are really difficult to be able to find. So, any thoughts there?
You know what? One of the things that I struggled with early on was leadership. And I was a personal producer. I kept to myself. I spent years and years and years being a pothead. So I didn't talk to a whole lot of people. And I had like this social anxiety from being kind of a hermit for so many years and just hanging around other potheads. So it took me a long time to develop, and I knew it was a sore spot for me. So one of the first personal development books I picked up was a John Maxwell book called The 5 Levels of Leadership. And it was, it was a little over my head at that point, but I started to just really put an emphasis on becoming a good leader at whatever stage I was at. I just knew that I needed to make some progress so I could communicate effectively and build and develop patience with people, and then have some empathy and understanding for people's situations, because not everybody's like me. And not everybody's going to push as hard and work as hard and be as crazy all in as I am. And it took me a long time. Another great book that I read that helped me a lot, that's one of my favorites, and I've read it probably 4 times now, is How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. And it talks a lot about how you treat people, how you talk to people, how important it is to be present and listen, and the impact that it makes on people when you can show up in that way. So there's no magic pill. It takes time. Some people have it a little bit more than others. For me, it's taken years and years and years of development and intention behind becoming somebody that can attract high quality people and develop people. That the true measure of a leader is when you can start developing other leaders.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. I love it. Jefferson, thank you for the time. This has been a great conversation.
Appreciate it, Matt.